John the Baptist dared to speak truth to power. That's what prophets are called to do, to tell it how it is, no matter what. To name the things that need to be confronted and the things that need to be changed. And the things that need to be overcome or taken away or improved. That's the job description of a prophet, and it's perhaps unsurprising that people don't like it very much when folk come along and point out your flaws. Those in power, those with vested interests, those who have the most to lose are unsurprisingly the most resistant to being called out in public for their wrongdoing. Last week we heard about John the Baptist down at the River Jordan and the edge of the wilderness slamming the religious leaders. Called them a brood of vipers to their face in front of everyone. Hypocrites who should know better. But he also called out everyone else. He called out the ordinary people to make a way, to sort themselves out because the Messiah is coming. And this week, we find John living with the consequences. He's in prison. Herod Antipas was a king. Say king. He was really little more than a puppet governor for the Romans. And yet he was ruthless and vengeful. Herod married his sister-in-law. And John was quick to let him know that that wasn't on. And so Herod threw him in jail. And he languished in his cell, and as he did, he was filled with the kind of doubts that we all might have. Was I right to do that? Was it worth it? Did it make anything different? Did I go too far? It's really easy to be righteous when there's absolutely nothing at stake. But when your big mouth lands you in prison, it's not hard to see why a little self-doubt starts to creep in, why a little reflection might be on someone's agenda. But it's a deeper concern that starts to trouble John, isn't it? What if this has all been for nothing? What if Jesus isn't the one? What if he's not the Messiah at all? So John sends some of his disciples, his followers, to ask Jesus the question, is it you? Are you the one? And I guess that's the ultimate Advent question, isn't it? Are you the one? Is Jesus really the Messiah? Are you the one that we've all been waiting for? And for John, this question is urgent. He's in prison. He's awaiting execution. He could really do with a warrior king on a big white horse leading an army right about now. That would be really convenient. Because John's life literally depends on that. For us, I wonder if the question is quite as front and centre. I wonder if it's lost some of its urgency for us. I wonder if it's even a question that we bother to ask anymore. I wonder if we've already decided. Of course, Jesus is the one. But then perhaps we look around and we wonder, well, sure, but what difference does it make? I mean, honestly, are things any better? Wars still rage. People are still poor. There are more food banks in Britain than there are McDonald's. That's the world that we live in. So no, it doesn't seem as though Jesus being the Messiah has made a lot of difference to the world, does it? And that's exactly what John was thinking. The Romans are still here. The religious leaders are corrupt and greedy. People are selfish and cruel. It's easy to see why John's gospel speaks of darkness. We all know that our own fears and problems are magnified in the middle of the night. We lie there and there's nothing else to occupy your mind except your worries. It's as if the night blots out all sense of hope and joy. We just lie there in the dark. John sends his disciples to find out if his biggest fear has been realised. That the wait isn't over. That the prophecies have not come true. That Jesus is just another preacher who can do some cool tricks and it'll all lead to nothing. And they get an answer that they don't expect. Jesus confirms to them John's status as a prophet. And he asked them a question. What was it you went out into the wilderness to look at? Some reed shaken by the wind? What did you go out to see? Someone dressed in soft robes? Those people live in palaces. What did you go out into the wilderness to see? You went to see a prophet. And you did. You saw a prophet. In fact, even more than that. He's the one that the other prophets wrote about. He's the one that's the messenger that's sent ahead of me, preparing the way for me. So John is the messenger, the last of the prophets, the one who will usher in the reign of the new king. Brilliant. Fantastic. That's great news. Jesus must be the Messiah. Phenomenal. It's going to be okay. Jesus will sort it all out. He'll inspire a revolution. He'll overthrow this corrupt king. He'll get rid of the Romans, and everything's going to be better. But John's followers have skipped straight to the end, right to the part they wanted to hear, the bit that confirms all of their expectations. They've missed what Jesus actually said. When you went out into the wilderness to see John thundering away on the banks of the Jordan, what did you expect to find? What were you actually looking for? Were you looking for someone to make things better? And if you were, then John fits the bill, doesn't he? Someone who's fearless in the face of authority, full of righteous anger, offering a new start, a change, a promise of better times to come. Things are just about to improve. And isn't that what we all want? We want strong leadership. We crave certainty. It doesn't seem to matter much what that certainty is, but we want it. It seems perhaps to be a product of our own age. And by age, I mean what age we are, not the epoch that we find ourselves in. Apparently, we get more conservative the older that we get. I wonder if that's because we've seen it all before. I wonder as we get older, our expectations actually go down. I mean, I've almost come to terms with the fact that I'm not going to get selected for Scotland to go to the World Cup. But Billy Gilmour's just had surgery, so you never know. Our outlook changes as we get older, doesn't it? The things that we took for granted become a bit less certain. We look back. We look back on our glory days, whatever they were. We try and recapture a time when the world made sense to us, when we felt as though we were perhaps in control. Because that's what looking back does, doesn't it? Even the hardest times take on a kind of a sheen, a positive shine. Well, we survived, so it must not have been that bad. We're here, still. And those times that we look back on contain people. They contain things, they contain places, some of which we've lost. Loved ones who are gone. A career that we perhaps enjoyed but it's not us anymore. Perhaps we had status. Perhaps it's just the idea of youth, that you could get out of bed in the morning and nothing hurt. Remember that? The thing is that we know that we can't get back there. But it doesn't stop us trying to stop the world and turn it back a bit. Perhaps we feel with each passing day we move further and further away from that moment where we felt most alive. And I think that relates a bit to how John feels, sitting there in the darkness of his prison cell, wondering what happened to all that possibility, all that hope. The psalmist writes that joy comes in the morning. Joy comes in the morning because the darkness has been dispelled by the light. The heat of the sun warms the day. Creation is revealed. And we can look around and we can see God and the world again. John the Baptist has been talking about this promise that God had made through the prophets. Even he doesn't really seem to understand what the fulfillment of that promise looks like, which is kind of odd. It's odd because the prophets have been talking about this for literally 1,000 years. The very prophets that he quotes, like Isaiah, have said things like, the wilderness and the dry land will be glad. The deserts will rejoice and blossom. The crocus will blossom abundantly. It will strengthen the weak hands, make firm the feeble knees. Yes, please. Say to those who are full of fear, be strong. The eyes of the blind will open, the ears of the deaf will be unstopped, and on it goes. It's all lovely. It's joyful, even. As Julian of Roerich said, all will be well, and all manner of things will be well. But I've missed a bit. Here is your God. He will come with vengeance and terrible recompense. He will come and he will save you. I think perhaps that's the bit that John likes best. I wonder if it's the bit that we like best. All that nice stuff is, well, nice. We'll take it. But we'd like it to come at our enemy's expense. We would like it to come at someone's expense. John is the last of the Old Testament preachers, full of fire and brimstone and judgment and vengeance. And he doesn't see any of that in Jesus. And the problem is that vengeance is easy. And we'll become incredibly good at it. We want those people that we think cause our problems to be sent away, or sorted out, or punished somehow, because it's someone else's fault. Isaiah writes this prophecy when the people are in exile in Babylon. Their neighbours have been their problem. And wouldn't it be great if God could just come and destroy them all? All they want to do is get back home. And so Isaiah offers this vision of a highway in the desert, going through a lush, green, pastoral scene, not a hard road in the wilderness. They want vengeance. But that's not how things change. That's not how the kingdom of God comes about. Instead of vengeance and retribution, we need justice and reconciliation. We want to be bigger and stronger and more prosperous and richer and crucially more secure. And at the same time, Jesus' manifesto is for us to be smaller and more vulnerable and more compassionate and meek. Can you imagine Jesus running on that manifesto? Blessed is anyone who takes no offence at me. Well, why would anyone take no offence at you? You're a walkover. Jesus' answer to John's followers is to ask them what evidence they've seen. In the middle of a brutal occupation by a military superpower, what have you heard? When corruption and greed and violence and lies are currency, what have you seen? Behind the headlines and the fear and the hatred, what's being talked about? Go and tell John. Go and tell John that the blind receive their sight, that the lame walk, that lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. Jesus' story is a different story. There is another way. Even in the darkest of our moments, despite our fears and our anxieties, God promises joy. In the long watches of the night, despite our loss and our grief, God promises joy. In the lines at the food banks and our neediness and lack of resources, God promises joy. Despite ourselves, God promises joy. In the arid places, water will gurgle up. In the barren places, life will sprout. In the frozen wastes of our hearts and lives will be lovingly thawed out, will be nurtured and infused with joy. And there's nothing we can do to stop it. So dare we imagine that kind of world? Dare we speak of that kind of hope in the silence? Dare we pour colour into the shadows? Dare we gather in such a promise on the cusp of incarnation? God infiltrates our best efforts and our worst and causes joy to bubble up in hopeless places. However unlikely it may seem, the psalmist is right. Joy comes in the morning. So be prepared. Get ready. Because the baby kicks in the womb. The pains of labour are stirring. The angels are clearing their throats. The time is almost here. Quietly. Oh, so quietly. The creeping of the light conspires against the darkness, and the slow elegance crushes the shadows one by one. And on the cusp of a promise, the silence wilts with the burden of waiting, caught in the not yet of incarnation. It's a heavy silence that bears the burden of war and an exhausted planet, a community that's lost its sense of belonging. But light can't be overcome by armies or by time. And in the first gasp of God, it erupts. It breaks free. Its brightness is cast across the universe. Wave upon eternal wave. Never to be constrained. Charging against the shadows that cast darkness into the forgotten night. Will we conspire? Conspire with the light. Because joy comes in the morning.